Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rockefeller Tree Tragedy. It's some sort of horror video thing, whatchamacallit, and we're gonna watch it. And it's doodled by what appears to be a small girl, by Virginia. Virginia's in Wonderland.
During the first winter of the center's construction, the workers set up a Christmas tree just outside the entrance. It was an uncanny sight to see a green fir stand in the middle of what appeared to be a no-man's land. But this tree, humbly ordained with strings of cranberries,
You don't like the way he's talking.
and tin cans, greatly affected me. It demonstrated that even in the darkest of times, the American people will light the beacons of hope. I thought it could...
He's speaking this like I'm imagining an old paralyzed man in a wheelchair who's just like, but I just needed to say that.
be the start of a great and inspiring tradition, so I traveled north to Babylon in search of a Christmas tree for the following year.
Right. Is this an actual book? I'm not entirely sure what I'm witnessing right now. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I guess I'll figure it out later.
For 12 days and 12 nights, Mr. Rockefeller looked for the best tree in the forest. How about this one, Mr. Rockefeller?
It's so small.
No, it's much too short.
It's like the
How
Charlie
about
Brown
this
Christmas
one,
tree.
Mr. Rockefeller? No, it's much too tall. How about this one, Mr. Rockefeller? No, it's much too average.
Aren't you picky, aren't
Mr.
you?
Rockefeller soon feared that he would leave empty-handed.
You're like the Christmas. You're like the
On
Willy
12th
Wonka of
night,
Christmas
just
trees.
as he was packing up his stuff, Mr. Rockefeller heard the sweetest tune in the air. It sounded as though the very wind itself had fallen in love. He
With
and his
what?
men followed the song and found themselves at the base of a very, very special tree.
It's dead.
How about this one, Mr. Rockefeller? It's perfect.
How are you gonna sell him a tree that you just
Luckily
found in the
enough,
woods?
men
That's not your
swung
tree to
their axes
sell.
At the special tree. Chop, chop, chop. However, when the sun rose, the tree was still standing. Their axes had left no marks at all.
How did it take you all night to figure that
Rockefeller
out?
was surprised. The next day, Mr. Rockefeller and his men laid 100 sticks of dynamite around the tree.
You're gonna
Three,
blow it up!
1, boom! Yet, the special tree continued to stand.
You chopped it and blew it up, and it's
Rockefeller was surprised.
still there. You need to
So
leave.
Mr. Rockefeller decided to hire the best team of
That's not a
grave
tree.
diggers
That's a
to
monster.
take the tree out of the ground. After a week of digging, they told Mr. Rockefeller the tree will be out in 3 years at this rate. Mr. Rockefeller was surprised, but he decided to let the grave diggers work. He would pick the next 3 best trees for the next 3 Christmases. But by the 4th year, the special tree was ready to display.
Wonderful. How did you get the tree out of the ground, though? Did all 4 of you hoist it up with your massive gravedigger
For the
legs?
last 2 years, I have seldom mentioned the tragedy that occurred at the center. Many have taken offense at my silence, claiming it to be the result of a desensitization to workplace accidents. Indeed, I have seen enough accidents in 3 lifetimes, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened at the center. For some time now, my friends have blamed the center's original construction workers for the tragedy, since it was their very own Christmas tree that had started the whole tradition. But the truth is that their tree brought joy and wonder to the public. It was my tree, and my tree alone, that brought about the unprecedented loss.
Are we going back to the small girl story now? Yes, we are. What unprecedented tragedy and loss occurred exactly?
On a cold December morning in Midtown Manhattan, Rockefeller's men slowly raised the special tree. Heave ho! Heave ho! Heave ho! By the afternoon, the special tree stood tall and still. It was unlike any other tree, having no color, branches, or leaves.
Yeah.
The mayor of New York, Mr. Guardia, thought that the tree was too bare and asked for branches to be added so that ornaments could be hung.
Are you gonna glue?
Mr.
Are you gonna
Rockefeller
glue
didn't
the
agree. He thought
sticks
the tree was
onto the
perfect,
tree?
just the way it was.
Just slap them
But
all
since
around?
Mayor Guardia had been one of his best friends, Mr. Rockefeller told his men to glue some branches on.
Really?
I, Virginia, watched as the men placed branches on the special tree.
You actually
I had
glued
saved my
branches
money
onto
for over
them?
9 months to purchase a little star ornament because I wanted to be the very first person to decorate the Rockefeller Christmas tree. It laid in my pocket while I watched because I planned to hang my ornament as soon as the tree was standing. After the final branch had been added and all the men left, I quickly ran up to the tree. But to my astonishment, the lowest branch of the tree was over twice my height. I jumped as high as I could.
Could you
but
not tell
still,
that you were walking
the
up
lowest
there?
branch was out of my reach. I was very disappointed. I wanted to be the very first person to decorate the tree.
Throw it
but
up there.
I had no chance.
Just like cannonball your arm.
Unless I called my friends. At once, I began counting my friends on my fingers. There was Helen, Charles, Elizabeth, Alice, Joseph, Elsie, Orville, Edith, Olive, and Philip. 10 friends that I could ask for help. Then I realized that 10 friends standing on each other's shoulders could put me at the very top of the Christmas
The one on the bottom is going to have
star
a
could be the
twisted
first
spine
in the
after this. You're
palace.
going to kill him.
Without a second to spare, I ran from door to door, asking for help. Knock, knock, knock. Helen, are you there?
She's ignoring you.
Knock, knock, knock. Charles,
Don't
are you
entertain
there?
him. Well,
Knock, knock,
you're
knock.
going to die,
Elizabeth,
all of
Are
you.
you there?
All 10 of you are
Eventually,
going to
I
break your
gathered all
backs.
10 of my friends at the bottom of the Rockefeller Christmas tree. I told them my plan, to have them all stand on each other and form a ladder for me to climb to the top. My friends understood my excitement, and they quickly started to climb onto each other's shoulders. Ow! Helen had stepped on Charles' fingers. Ow! Charles had stepped on Elizabeth's fingers. Ow! Elizabeth had stepped on Alice's fingers. After many groans and
Small
tumbles,
pyramid
my
of children.
friends formed a sturdy ladder, and I began to climb.
How are you not
My
dead?
joy grew with every passing face. Before I knew it, I was at the very top.
And then you
looking
all
down
came
at the
tumbling
tree.
down to the ground.
My ladder of friends swayed back and forth, and occasionally felt like it was about to collapse. But I tuned out the movement and focused on the tree.
Don't tune out the
Press it,
movement.
friend.
The movement
Press
is how you know if
Then
you're about to
I
die or
secured the
not.
metal star at the top of the tree. It was perfect. Hooray! Victory! I'm the first.
Victory
This one was a
screech!
strange sound. The tree
Oh!
began to shake. Its glued branches fell off all at once, and the entire tree slowly bent backwards. Soon, the very top of it touched the ground, forming a perfect arc. It was like a very strange rainbow. My heart sank as I saw my star gently slide to the
Why do I
ground
keep
from the
yawning?
tree's top. Bolts of lightning then shot out from inside the arc of the tree, producing thunderous booms. The lightning
You making
scared
a
my
nether
friends.
portal?
We all tumbled to the ground and ran in all directions, but the lightning caught up to us. I was blinded by a great white light. I remember when my eyes adjusted, I was in a field of special trees, and I saw... In a flash, I
Saw-
returned to the street where my
saw
friends
who?
had been struck by
Santa?
the lightning.
It's
We were
Christmas
all on
tree.
the ground,
It's Santa?
being
Did you see
attended
Santa
to by
Claus?
other people.
What did Santa do to
I
you?
had scratched my legs badly, and I could see that my friends were also hurt. I looked up at the Rockefeller buildings, and I thought that they looked a little different. The
Where's
whole
the tree?
street looked a little different, and the special tree was nowhere in sight.
It got up and walked away. It left. No Christmas for you. You deserve no presents. You don't even deserve coal.
It is only natural for the reader at this point to wonder why the incident has been referred to as a tragedy. There had been no loss of life, and, aside from a few temporary scorch marks on the center, no damage to the surrounding property. I too assumed it was a mostly inconsequential event, likely an electrical accident whose effects were exaggerated by the children at the scene. I was grateful
Makes sense,
that
makes sense.
every life involved had been spared. A death at the center would have weighed heavily on my mind for some time. But when I encountered the results of the children's medical examinations, I wished that a death had occurred in place of the unfathomable.
Unfathomable what? Unfathomable what? What happened? You can't just unfathomable me and then walk away. What happened to the... Oh, I guess I'll...
My mom and Pa visited me at the hospital, but they looked completely different.
Right.
Ma looked worried. After she wiped her tears, she asked, "Did you hang your bear at the Rockefeller tree?"
Bear? You mean star?
It wasn't a bear. I was going to hang a star. To which they asked, "What do you mean?"
They opened the nether
asked,
portal.
"Where did you get these clothes?"
They switched places.
"These are my clothes, the ones you helped me put on this morning."
They opened the nether
What's
portal
that?
for real.
"What do you mean?" My ma then asked, "Why are there dots all over your face?" I answered, "Those are my freckles. I've had them since I was little." To which they asked, "What do you mean?" My parents quietly left my bed and talked to my friend's parents. Then they all started to cry and yell. The nurses made them leave, which made me feel better. None of us thought that our real parents had visited, but they all did feel familiar.
The nether portal, I'm
Mabel
telling you, it
and
ain't no
Philip
joke.
were especially shaken. They didn't even share the same last name with their parents. The nurses tried to convince us that those who had visited us were our parents, and that we would come around to properly greet them after we healed. But it was hard to believe. Whenever I looked out the window, I saw that Manhattan looked different from memory. Mr. Rockefeller himself was kind enough to visit us in the hospital. He asked us whether we were okay, and then after some time, he and the nurses began to ask us some very easy questions about American history. With every reply, they would chuckle and shake their heads, until I told Mr. Rockefeller who I thought he was. He chuckled at first, and then became silent, as if the simple fact had deeply affected him. He had asked all my friends a few more questions about himself, and with each answer, he seemed a little more scared. Mr. Rockefeller quietly stood with the nurses for a while, before he wished us a Merry Christmas and left. That evening, the nurses took x-rays of us to make sure we hadn't broken our ribs. Usually, those taking the x-rays are more than happy to show their patients what the pictures looked like. But when I asked to see them, the nurses ignored me.
The nether portal.
I didn't fall asleep that night. I kept my ear close to the wall to hear what the nurses were saying next door.
About the nether
I heard
portal.
one sentence over and over. Everything's backwards. I wonder what they meant by that. I never told my friends, because I didn't want to scare them. But I spent the rest of the night with my hand to my chest, wondering if my heart was ever on the right side.
The nether portal. So they got bamboozled. They got bamboozled. The tree wilted. Lightning came through the tree, and then they got swapped. One went this way, the other went that way.
For several weeks, the children were kept under observation at the Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I visited them as soon as I had the chance to. All the families of these children were deeply unsettled, for they had all independently come to the conclusion their child had been replaced by a doppelganger. They claimed that these new sons and daughters possessed substantial differences from their real children. The majority of differences involved altered physical attributes and the inability to recognize familiar locations and characters, such as their parents and their homes. Two boys even claimed to have names different to those that their mothers had given them at birth.
They got bamboozled.
But of all the discrepancies, the most bizarre was their faulty recollections of notable persons and events. For instance, each of the affected children claimed that I had become the wealthiest man in America through an oil monopoly. It is common knowledge
Boy, I wish that was
I
true.
did indeed work at an oil refinery in my youth. But to
I bet
entirely deny
you wish
my
that
two
was true.
terms as president and insist instead that I had always been a mere philanthropist struck me as being particularly odd. The families were agonized by the children's behavior. Some continue to search for their real children. I support their endeavors, for I do not believe that the children's afflictions were the result of hysteria.
I mean, how can hysteria switch your heart from one side to the other?
I find myself recollecting the day that I had selected the tree. I have since realized the difficulties involved in the removal of it should have repeatedly discouraged me.
Obviously.
And had I been discouraged, the families of those children would not be experiencing the anguish that they currently have. Perhaps I never had the opportunity to select another tree. Perhaps I was meant to select that tree regardless of my persistent character. Perhaps we are all trolleys, forced to follow the path of the track to each of our destinations. I take solace in that thought. Or perhaps the tree chose me.
Yeah, there's no reason in hell that you would ever pick that tree. There's no reason anybody would ever pick that tree. If that tree, you axed it, you blew it up, and you dug it up for 4 years, and it didn't want to move. Then you picked up the tree, dragged it to the middle of the city, slapped it down there, glued some tree branches onto it, slapped a star on it. The tree tilted, disappeared. Lightning came flowing out of the tree before it disappeared. Children were replaced with other children. Second of all, if that were to even happen, those kids, it's 1930s, those kids would have been stoned. Those kids would have been dead. They would have killed them. So, I don't know. There are many questions and zero answers, and whoever did this horrible thing is a complete and utter buffoon. An idiot. The amount of stupidity that must have been flowing through your brain when this event occurred is astronomical. Uh-oh. Nice end-screen jump scare. I love that. I love that. I love it so much. Thank you for providing me with such a wonderful experience, oh great sir and or madam.